Well, Australia will be in the red until 2035. That's the takeaway from the federal government's mid-year economic outlook. Debt is set to tick over $1 trillion for the first time ever, with neither major party openly committing to tough reforms that will reduce it. When it comes to the election, though, Labor and the Coalition are drawing the battle lines for a tax and spend versus a slash and burn contest. For their take, let's bring in Perth Lord Mayor Basil Zempilas and columnist Susie O'Brien. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Baz, we just had to use this, the front cover of the Nightly. How good is that? It obviously goes to this song if you want to sing along at home to the tune of Last Christmas. So, last Christmas I gave you a surplus, but the very next May, you gave it away. They go on to say, while Australians are tightening their belts this holiday season, the government is loading up the budget stocking with years of debt and deficit. Is that
There's
fair?
a lot of, they're big numbers, aren't they? They're big numbers, and they're quite sobering even at this time of the year, because it's the next generations that are going to be feeling that. A $26.9 billion deficit and then a $46.9 billion deficit the year after is what's forecast. You've already talked about trillions. It's a difficult position for this government. They got the budget back relatively balanced, but we know that spending on pensions, spending on Medicare, spending on medicines has gone up. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. So Labor say, well, what do you want us to do? Not spend on those things? There'll be a portion of the population that will say, of course, we need that help. But there will be others absolutely horrified by those numbers and think, how do we ever wind back from that? That's the difficulty.
Susie, it was interesting yesterday also, of course, that there was this election promise of energy bills going down by $275. The Treasury yesterday was really hammered on this, but still sort of clinging to this idea that our power bills could be reduced by $275 by 2025, which is 2 weeks away, but won't call it a broken promise.
Oh, there's a lot of broken promises on that front. Governments are increasingly spending like teenagers. You know, they've adopted the buy now, pay later kind of rationale. And so they are hoping that they're not going to have to pay back any of that money until after the next election, or ideally, as Baz was saying, you know, sometime in the next generation. And legitimately, there are big costs in the budget, NDIS, aged care, etc. And of course, we want those things funded. But it's an election year and the government is also under pressure, not only to address cost of living, but also for people to have some sort of a handout, some sort of election sweetener. And all this is going to do is increase the deficit even more.
Yep, and inflation to stay up. All right, moving on now. And a woman has gone viral on social media for sharing the fact that she jokingly asked for a pay rise from her boss at the work Christmas party. Baz, what do you think? She's saying it's a great opportunity to chat to people you wouldn't normally, so why not ask for an extra 30 grand?
Yeah, I love it, actually. I love it. Not only is it Christmas and is everybody feeling better, but you are in those situations that you might not often be. A little bit of Dutch courage. Why not go and ask those difficult questions that you wouldn't? Now, I don't know what the response was. I'm tipping it would have been met with some humour and maybe a delaying tactic from the boss. I'm interested to learn. Do we know?
Oh, I think it might have been an awkward laugh. The article goes on to say, I'd not advise to doing shots at the Christmas party
No.
and not giving your boss advice. Susie, that sounds like pretty good advice, I think.
Well, I think it's not a good idea to ask your boss for a pay rise at the Christmas party, because he or she might be drunk too. So they could say yes, but nothing's going to happen. But what you definitely don't want to do, which is what I did a couple of years ago, and tell your boss you don't like their hairstyle.
Oh, dear.
What?
I actually did say that. So I had one of those things a couple of days later where I had to say, I'm very sorry, that was totally out of line. Then a couple of years ago, also, I told a co-worker that he was talking too loudly in the office. And then again, I had to do that humbling apology where you say, I'm really sorry, that was out of line. Actually, I still mean it. You do talk to, but no, I shouldn't have said it. And so, look, I'm just going to avoid work functions for some
don't
time.
go, Susie.
Wise,
don't go. That's my
wise.
advice.
Yeah, it's one of the
Probably
busiest days of the year for the emails, isn't it, when everybody's just apologising for whatever happened. I have sent emails before just saying, I'm sorry about whatever it was. Unsure, but I'm sure that
I
there was
did,
something.
but I'm sorry.
OK, now finally, a mum has shared a primary school policy that's raising eyebrows, revealing that the school that her child visits pays a visit to her home to check that a kid is really ill after 3 sick days off. She said that they thought that they were bluffing at first, but revealed the school representative, came to the home when the 4-year-old son was down with chickenpox on day 3. Does this cross the line, Baz?
It's unusual, isn't it? I mean, I know we're all a bit suspicious sometimes in various workplaces or probably at schools and other environments where there's a bit of a team approach about, is that person really sick? Can they really still be sick 3 or 4 days later? But in the school environment, especially with chickenpox, you'd think, would that be necessary? I think it does go a little bit far. I think you've got to trust parents. Parents know their kids better than anybody. And I don't know any parent that wants their kid at home after day 4 anyway. So that in itself tells you it must be true that they're sick.
I wondered, Susie, whether it might be not actually to get the truancy on several days, but to check whether they'd gone on holidays early.
Yes, well, I actually don't have a problem with people checking up on to see if a kid's really sick. Of course, they don't want to pick anything up. Well, actually, they could pick up my kids. That'd be great. But what we really don't want is for this to carry over into the workplace. Yeah. That would be very bad indeed, because when you're on day 3 of your Christmas party hangover, you really do not want anyone popping in and checking out on you.
Yes.
And you also don't want to make sure that no one is checking up if you're working from home, if you're actually working or even at home. So I think it's best that the workplace stays out of the home as much as possible.
I actually agree. And Baz, I see we've continued our long-held tradition of dressing like we're going to the prom today.
Perfect.
And Susie's coming along as well, I see. So the 3 of us.
It's going to be a big night.
A perfect trio.
Tap it all the way.
Thank you. I'm getting ready to send the next day emails.